Hi everyone, welcome to WW Designs. My name is Nikki and today it's Swap Day Creations. I'm in an Aussie craft group. There's a few of us that are junk journalers and this is the third year of making things where we get a swap partner and we have to make something and of course receive the same in return. Now, for the first half of this year, we are making junk journal pages that are complete and decorated and will all be put together in the simplest possible format that when they're done, they will get holes in them and they will all sit together with these little clips, which, you can buy. I get mine off Temu. And it's a fun project, very different to what we've done in the past. But I have a playlist called Creative Collab Journal. There is a ton of videos there if you want ephemera ideas or whatever. The first two pages, the lady I swapped with is doing a nautical journal, so you can go and check out those two videos. Each one of these pieces becomes 2 pages. So in the last 2 videos in this collection, I did the cover and the first page and the second and third page. So this will effectively be the 4th and 5th page of this journal. So the lady I'm swapping with had lots of different things that she liked, so it made it quite easy for me to pick what I was going to work with. So we'll give a rundown of how we're going to start this. If you've never made a junk journal before, this is a really easy way to have a play at making pockets and all sorts of fun things, and then put it all together, make yourself a journal, and if you mess it up or you don't like what you've made, you can throw it in the bin and start all over again because there's no sewing or gluing things together. It's very, very simple. So what we need to do this today, we are starting with a piece of cardstock, not too thin, because remember this is actually going to be the pages of your journal, and this I have printed out on matte photo paper because I didn't have anything in my stash that I wanted to use as a base, and it is 8 inches across and 7.5 inches down. Now here in Australia we are metric, we usually work in centimeters, but this original idea came from Pink Monarch Prints, and so that we end up with the exact size, I am doing this job in inches. If you start messing around with, 7.57 centimeters, it gets too hard. So we're working in inches today. So we need 8 across, 7.5 down, and then folded in half, because this will be joined together to create page 4 and page 5. Then the next thing we need is a pocket. Now this is meant to be 4 inches by 3 inches. Mine is a tiny bit less than 4 inches, simply because this piece of scrap I found in my stash and I wanted to use it. But technically, it's meant to cover the whole area. Mine is a tiny bit short, and guess what? All good, don't care. That's fine. Then we need 3 little pieces, okay? And these need to be 2.5 inches by 2 inches. These are going to be 3 pockets, and we will get to those shortly. And we do need a large tag that will be going down the back inside. We're not going to glue the top. We are going to leave it open. And so you need a nice large tag to go in there. Mine happens to be 7 inches by 3 inches because, yet again, found this scrap in my stash and I wanted to use it. Okay, so just one thing to keep in mind when doing this, we need to leave about 1/2 inch down here without too much embellishment or anything like that, because holes have to be punched in here. So I won't be punching holes. We're mailing ours without the holes, just so that everybody can do their own holes. Their holes will then all be the same size in case, we have a different size hole punch. this particular lady that I'm swapping with, she's only going to be using 2 rings. She's got a binder system that she's using. So we're not doing holes, so that makes things easy. So we've created the first bit. This is what we need. Now, the next thing we need to do, and I'm just grabbing my little punch here, we are going to roughly get about the middle, and we're going to do the old punch in a divot. And I'm not measuring, it is what it is, so that's all good. Then the next thing we have to prepare are these 3 little cuties. Now, yes, these are little pockets, but they're not going to be normal pockets. They're actually going to be mini file folders. So just to help you sort this out, I have actually, that's the top one, because this needs to be in reverse, and I've picked the order I want these to go in. We're actually just going to cut our own little file folder tabs out. I have a file folder die cut, but it is considerably bigger than this. So now technically, if you want measurements, these are, you start off at a 1/4 inch. This is about 3/4 of an inch. But you know what? It doesn't have to be an exact size. You may decide you want to make a journal page that's a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. So then you have to adjust your pockets accordingly. But to make life easy, that's sort of the rough measurements I've worked with. And then we just trim all these bits off. And look, we got a little mini file folder, number 1. Then the second one is in the middle instead of having them all on one side. So we're doing exactly the same thing again. And that's why I drew this on here in a nice bold black pen so you could sort of see exactly what I was doing. And I'm not even cutting them perfectly. It's all good. We don't need to measure. It's all okay. We just want to get the job done. And out comes that bit. And that annoys me, but that's okay. There's the middle one. And then we're doing exactly the same for this one. And of course, this one is going to be on the other side. And the reason why I'm turning it around like this, I love these scissors, but when you're doing something tight like this, you can actually bend down your paper and you end up with a crease, and I don't want that. So it's easier just to flip it round and trim it off than to risk putting a crease in my file folder. I don't want that. So see how we now have our little, they look like file folders, and they're our little pockets. So the one thing I am going to do before we put all this together, I'm going to go and ink my edges. When I've done that, we're going to continue on. But of course, you don't have to ink your edges if you don't want to. But the lady I'm swapping with does like vintage looking things. So we're going to ink the edges. All I'm going to do is grab my vintage photo and my little dauber, and we're just quickly going to do all the edges. But you don't need to watch that. That's very boring. I'll be back very shortly. So we have lots of lovely inked edges now, but I just realized one thing before I glue my pocket down. I have one little thing I want to do. This is a little scrap from a printable that I have had. Which way does it go? No, that way. It doesn't matter. Oh, maybe. Is that the right way up or this way? Oh, I think it might be that way. I want to add a little bit of decoration to my pocket. And this is a little scrap, and it brought in some of the colours together. See, I've got a little bit of blue happening and I've got a little bit of green, and this sort of seemed perfect. And I want to glue this onto here so that I can trim it off and then ink that edge before I glue it down. Otherwise it's going to be pretty much mission impossible. So I'm just grabbing my glue stick and just glue this down over here So we're going right up the edge there because I've got a straight edge, pretty much. Well, sort of straight. When Nikki cuts, things are often not straight, but guess what? That's okay. And then we're going to trim this part off because this is just too hard to do once this is glued down. And we, of course, just need to ink that edge so it all matches. Perfect. There we go. Okay. There we go. And then I'm just going to place that pretty much in the center. Now, of course, this will, there will be a hole punched through here somewhere, but this is not the thickest of cardstocks, nor is this, so it shouldn't be too hard to punch it through, but voila, there's our first pocket. Then we are going to add our cute little file folders. Something like that. Let's just see if we have this one relatively close to the bottom and then leave a similar sort of gap. We want room to be able to put things in. I think that looks pretty good. Why don't we start down the bottom and work our way up? And we're putting these over towards the center, which will be, this will be the, you know, the outer edge, and we're keeping this clear for holes. There we go. I'm trying to keep a similar sort of gap. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Down. Now, let's add a little bit more decoration to these. Are we in frame? We are. So, this was part of, excuse me, this printable. And again, we've got a little bit of the blue, a little bit of this sort of neutrally colour, peachy colour. It sort of goes together, but not 100%, but it's pretty close to me. So I'm just going to glue this down. So we're just going to glue that down. I've inked around the edges for this too. And then I found this very cute little tiny tag, and it has the word exchange on it. And I thought that was a fun little thing to add because this is a crafty exchange. So I thought that was perfect. So we're just going to add that in there, down there. And then we've got a few tiny bits. I just want a little bit of deco on these. So for the top one, I had a scrap that I had die cut out a circle, and I thought we're going to pop that on there. Just add a little bit of glue. Voila. And then I have this tiny weeny little number 1, which we're going to put on there. You don't have to put numbers on them, but I found these in my stash and they put numbers on theirs, Pink Monarch Prints, when they made their sample of this. So I thought, oh, look, I've got these cute little numbers. The colours match perfectly. So I went, I want those. And then I've just got this little butterfly. I went through my stash and I was hunting for little things. I realised how few I have, but I thought that contrast there was perfect. So we're going to leave that one as it is. Then I also found this little label, which I cut out from, I didn't even realize, oh no, that's too dark. We're going to stick with my original plan. This was from a Scrap Boys pad that 8x8 pad that I have, and we're going to pop that maybe sort of there. Don't keep that bit of green and that showing, and I don't want it in exactly the same place. And of course I have a tiny little number 2. And I think, whoops, a daisy. Come here. Back we go. This is why tweezers are so handy. We might just put that right there. And then finally, we have these bits. I just cut this little rectangle out and rounded the corners. This is from that same Scrap Boys pad that I had, but I liked the shades of this. I thought it went really well with what I was doing here. And then we might add that sort of down there in the middle-ish. A tiny little leafy die cut. Oh, it's the same on both sides. That's handy. We'll pop that on there. And finally, a tiny little number 3. And we're just going to pop this down there. Okay, so that's our main base all done. And now we need to glue this together. So what I'm going to do, we do not want to glue the top. So I'm going to, sometimes when you're adding glue, just to make sure you're doing it the right way, just put a little mark up here, just to remind you that's where you don't want glue. And also, I'm going to run glue all the way down, obviously. But the other thing I'm going to do, because we have this 1/2 inch sort of allowance, but we want room for the holes, instead of having to get through a ton of glue, just to strengthen this a little bit, I'm going to run another line up there. And that way it will keep my long journaling card more in place and will provide a little bit of extra strength. So the same thing, I'm going to just put a couple of little bits in between, like the holes won't go there. You know what I mean? And I'm just providing a little bit of extra strength for this. Then we're going to flip it around and we're just going to glue the bottom. And I'm also just going to run tiny bit right up near the border here where we've folded. Again, it's just a little bit of extra strength for this piece. And of course, we are not adding glue there because we are now folding this over. We're going to press that down. And we now have page 4 and page 5, and we are open at the top. So let's continue on. We're going to make our large tag. I'm leaving this as it is, very straightforward. What I did do, I found this sheet of journaling cards, cutouts, and that's how the colour inspiration for this entire thing came about. Because there was some blues and greens and flowers and butterflies, and I just loved these. And you know, the old, you can't hang on to pretty things forever. You need to use them. So I grabbed this sheet out, and then everything else I pulled together came from this sheet. I went with colours and styles that matched. So we're going to glue this one down on here so that it has a little bit of decoration on it. You don't have to do this. You can leave your journaling card completely plain, but look, I like pretty things and I wanted to use some of these up. Not that you'll see it unless you actually pull it out, but that's okay. And I also noticed there's a little printing error. I don't know what. I don't like that black spot there. So we're going to use this journaling card to cover that up. There we go. Then I went through my stash, found this little scrap, and I've cut 2 circles. I've inked the edges, and I'm going to use these as my top tab to help pull this journal card out. And I didn't realize at the time, but you've sort of got this lacy print here, and then this almost looks a little bit like some form of sewing. So I thought, oh, well, that's a fluke. I didn't realize that, but it seems to work quite well. So we're just going to, let's pop that on there like that, sort of roughly in the center, flip it over, and then grab the other one and pop it down. Now, I realise now, ideally, would have been good if I had used a double printed, something with a print on this side or some colour, but I'm not going to worry about it, and especially because it's going to be hidden in our little pocket up the top here. The only thing I'm going to have sticking out is that little tab. So that's all you're going to see, and it's dual-sided, so I think that looks fine. And then there's a big white journaling card to write on. So put that aside for a moment. Now we need to make some goodies for this. Now, found this piece in my stash. It was just printed on normal copy paper. So I've done my old, glued it down to a shopping bag trick to give it a little bit of substance. Great way to do journaling cards though, or tags or whatever, and not have them too thick, which sometimes is ideal because I'm actually going to put 2 pieces in here. So I've just chopped this out. You make this any size you want. I've cut off the corners to make it into a tag. And same thing, I'm using another one of the journaling cards, and I picked this one because it has this little butterfly or moth or whatever on the top, and I want you to be able to see that when it's in the pocket. So I'm not going to glue it right down the bottom. You get what I'm saying? So we're going to add some glue to this. All right, and as I said, I want it up a little bit higher so that that cute little butterfly, and then these, I like the background with the words on it. I thought that was just sort of, you know, words, just matchy-matchy, but not ridiculously matchy-matchy. There we go. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the old crocodile, and we're going to put an eyelet on it. Now, I always have to think twice about this. No, I think that's the right one. Oh, I don't use this very often, so I do get a little bit confused by this. No, we're going to use the bigger one. We're going to make our hole, which is sort of roughly in the middle. Then we're going to pop the eyelet through. Oh, good choice. And then we're going to set it, I think. Oh, there we go. Oh, perfect. Absolutely perfect. And then I've got this little bit of a scrap ribbon. Excuse the hammering outside. My neighbour is up to something, but I'm not quite sure what. We're just going to feed that through, and we're going to tie this in a little bow. Really nice bow because this is all a bit squishy squashy, but when it travels to my recipient, that will help flatten it out. And then we're going to place that in there, and I'm going to, obviously when you punch the holes, if you do something like this, don't do it while your ephemera is still there, just in case you actually accidentally nick it, but I'm sure in this case it would be fine. And we have one more piece that's going in this pocket. This is another one of those journal cards. And I want the butterfly to sit there. And then I want this other one to be sneaking out the top. Can you catch what I was trying to do? There we go. So that is that side complete. And that, of course, is going to drive me nuts. I might even add a little bit of glue to that to flatten it out. But let's flip it over, because all we're going to do now is add a few little pieces into these file folder pockets. And I had to go through my stash and hunt for many things. So thankfully I did find a few. So for example, I thought this was a great one. Because these are file folders, I was thinking, you know, stationery, words, all that sort of thing. So I loved that one. And then I think we'll also add this little, I think that's a Tim Holtz piece. Found this cute owl. I thought that could be part of this. And then what we might do is put this little one in down here so we don't hide the little owl peeking out. No, let's swap this around, because otherwise there's two tags in one of them. We might put this one in here because it's a bit darker. Bit of contrast. Again, a few more words. And a cute little butterfly at the top of this little ticket. And there we go. And we are all done. So this is a really simple one, but I think it's very effective. I love how it looks, but it's not hard to do. And I love these little file pockets. They are just fabulous. I will definitely be doing those again. So I hope you enjoyed this video. The next one, which will be the next 2 pages, I will have up very shortly. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments box below. And I would appreciate it if you could give this video a thumbs up. Thank you very much. And until next time, stay safe and stay healthy, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.